Hey, how's it guys? Alright, so in this video, I'm going to show you how to use Google Maps Places new API in Python. So Google Maps has two versions of the Places API. And let's go into the documentation. Now, if we look at the left-hand side, we have two Places APIs. One is I'll say this is kind of like the legacy API. And the other one is going to be the new generation API. With the legacy Places API, you can use an API key to connect to the API endpoint. But with the next generation Places API, it's actually a lot more complicated than expected. And if we look at the supported platforms, on the documentation, it supports Android, iOS, JavaScript, and web service. And for this tutorial, I'll be showing you how to connect to the Places API new API using web service. Now let's look at the setup for the new Places API. For the Places API new, I'm going to just name this as Places API new. The API only supports OAuth 2.0 for authentication. And basically what that means is that we can make a request code to the API, but we'll have to go to the OAuth 2 authentication protocol. I'm going to cover 4 APIs that is part of the new Places API's umbrella. I'll cover Places details, nearby search, text search, and autocomplete. I know the Place Photos API has some issues, but essentially with this API, you are getting the photos information individually rather than in a batch. I think this is going to be everything I'm going to cover from the documentation. Now, in terms of the pricing, you get 200,000 credit to use every month. And that's going to be for every single Google Maps product. Everything you see here under products, those will be under the $200 credit that you can use. Now let's dive into the tutorial. So first, navigate to Google Cloud Console by going to console.cloud.google.com. If you're a new user, simply create an account and it's free. Then we need to create a project. On the top, click on the drop down. And if you don't have a project, simply create a new project. Now here I'm going to choose one of my projects. And to use OAuth 2 to authenticate, first you want to click on navigation menu, then go to APIs and services. And here you're going to see OAuth consent screen. You'll need to set up the consent screen page first. Now because I already have a consent screen set up, so simply follow the instruction and set up the consent screen. And once you create the consent screen page, we need to create an OAuth 2 credential. So click on credentials. And you can navigate to the credentials page by going to APIs and services. Then click on credentials. Now let me increase the zoom. On the top, click on create credentials and choose OAuth client ID. For the application type, I'm going to choose desktop app. Then give the account name. I'll name this as map demo and create the account. Now it's going to display the client's information.tied to that account. Now we need to download the client file by clicking on download JSON and save the file in your project folder. Now here I'm going to name the file client secret.json. And you can also download the client file by clicking on the download icon here. Right, so let's go ahead and launch your terminal. Now to connect to Places API new API service, we need to install Google Python client library. And you can find the pip command from Google Sheets API's page. Now go ahead and copy the pip command and run the installation. And once we install the libraries, actually there's one more library that I'll be using. and it's going to be the python.env Python package. And once we install all the libraries, as well as download the client file, we can now dive into the examples. From Google Maps API's documentation, I want to go to reference. On the left-hand side, you're going to see two different types of reference. One is going to be REST reference, and that's going to be using REST API. And the other one is going to be RPC, and that's going to be a specific Python package, not Python package, a specific package. And currently, I don't think RPC supports Python, so we have to use REST API. Now let's start with something easy. Let's start with search text. And I shouldn't close the tab. And let me put that back. Now the search text API here is corresponding to the text search API. And let me launch my VS Code. And let me delete this folder here. Oh, and before we dive into the Python examples, I created a module called Google APIs. Inside the module, I have a function called create service. Now, this function is a pretty important function. And using this create service function, we'll be able to connect to different APIs like Google Sheets API, YouTube API, Gmail API. In this case, we can also use this function to connect to the Places API new API. And you can download the source code from the link in the description below. Now I'm going to create a Python script called maps text search.py. Now I'm going to import the create service function. Next, we need to specify the API's information. So first, we need to create a variable to point to the client secret file that we just downloaded. Then we need to specify the API name, API version, and the scopes. Then using the create service function, we need to provide the client secret file, API name, API version, and scopes. Now let me go ahead and create the service object. And for the first time, you will need to authenticate your account. On this page, simply click on Advanced and click on this link to proceed. Now here we need to grant permission to the app, so click on Continue. And when you see this message, the authentication flow is complete, you may close this window. And we can close the tab. Now if I print the members of the service object, from the output, you should see the places endpoint. And from service.places. And let's print the members again. Oh, this should be a method. Now if we look at the output again, we now have these 6 elements. Now each element represents an API. So for autocomplete, it references to the autocomplete API here. And for the search nearby API, this is going to reference the nearby search API. And if you want, you can also go back to the documentation. And you can probably guess the association. So photos is going to be place photos. get is going to be place details. And I don't see close reference to any API. So just this file actually. And for this lesson, I'll show you 2 examples, since the usage is basically the same across all APIs. All right, so I'll pick search text and get. Now here I'm going to put my code editor and the documentation side by side. I want to go back to the documentation. And to be honest, this is probably one of the most confusing APIs you'll probably have to use in terms of within Google's APIs. Now here, let's go into search text document reference. Now, when we are providing parameters, we need to provide the parameters as a request body JSON object. And on top of that, there are other additional parameters that is not part of the request body, such as text query. This is going to be the search string that you are going to provide to perform the search. And this one is required, but the rest is going to be optional. Now, link all the links in the description below. Now, I'm going to insert the search object that places. And I name this as response. Now, first I need to insert the query. Let's name this as query. And let's say I want to search for ramen places. And it's going to be the query string. And for the region code, I'm just going to use US. And here we can also set the rank preference. And it's going to be an init value. And to set the ranking order, and let's use relevance. So this is going to be a text string of the ranking type. Then we have other additional parameters. And for those, I'll let you to go to those parameters I own. I want to cover the request body. Actually, you know what? I think I made a mistake. So this should go into the request body. Now let me do this. I'm going to create a request body object. And it's going to be the parameters. So first we need to provide the text query, which is going to be the search query. Then I'm going to specify the region code, and it's going to be US. Now for something more complex, like location restriction or location bias, with those, you'll need to provide a next dictionary object to set the parameters value. And actually, let me replace this with location restriction, since I already have a code snippet for it. Now, if we look into the location restriction object here, and we look at the description here, location restriction is going to be the region that you want to search. And it's going to be the latitude, longitude location. Then we need to set the radius. And if we look at the document reference, for the location restriction, this is going to be the object type. And I guess for search text, I need to set that to a rectangle. Then I need to dive into the next object. Then we need to set the dimension. And it's going to be low. And it's going to be high. I'm simply going to just grab the latitude and longitude from this example here. Now going back to the previous page, we don't need to provide the radius. And I know for nearby search, this is going to be circle, not rectangle. And the last one is going to be price levels. And for this one, we can provide a list of init values. So we can look at price level. So we can either choose free service, inexpensive, moderate, expensive, and very expensive. And I think for now, this is going to be everything I'm going to provide. Now we can supply the request body to the body parameter. Then we need to insert the execute method at the end. Now if I run, here, let me go back. Now if I run this code here, let me take a look. And I think it's going to be this one here that is causing the issue. Let me go back. Okay, so I see the issue here. I should take out the curly bracket. All right, so let me try again. And this time I'm able to create the request body. Now if I run the request, okay, sorry. So this should be places followed by search text. Then the body will go here. Now let me try again. Now if I run the request, you're going to run into this area right here. The field mask is required parameter. And this is where a lot of people run into difficulty trying to figure out how to use the API. And this actually took me a while to figure out. So if we go back to the documentation, and if we go into workway place data, choose fields to return. Using the next generation places API, you'll need to specify the fields. If you want to return everything, you can simply insert the wildcard. And here I'm going to insert fields. Then I'll insert the wildcard symbol. Now this time if I run the request, and that should go to, price level is not supported. So I guess for the text search API, the free price level is not supported. Now I'm just going to use very expensive. Okay, now this time I'm not running into any error. If I print the response, I will now get a dictionary that looks like this. And to return the items, if we print the keys, it will be on the places key. And I'll name the output as places list. Now we can look at the first record. Now this is going to be the information that tied to the parameter that we specify in the request body. Now one solution to import the dataset or to organize the dataset into a more manageable manner is using pandas. And this will be pip install pandas. And let me install the libraries first. Right, so let's go back. Now I can use pandas to load the dataset as a data frame. Now I can export the table as a CSV file. Now, if we go ahead and open the file, now we can easily examine the content. So from the data set, we have information such as the phone number, address, rating, and if I want to extract the photos, and I'll show you in a second. I want to locate the name field. It should be on the give me a second. I'm going to auto fit accounts. I guess the name of the place is somewhere. Let's look at the photos first. So if we look at the photos column, and this is going to be the photos that are tied to the restaurant or business. And the places photos API is essentially using place ID to retrieve the photos individually rather than as a batch. I want to just quickly look for the business name. Okay, so it is actually right here on the display name. So I'm actually going to normalize the table, and I'll go back. Now instead of using pd.data frame, I'll use the normalize JSON normalize function, and I'll provide the list, and I'll export the data frame. Now this time, if we look at the table again, now because everything is normalized, we can view all the columns this time individually. Now if I look for name, the display name column is going to be by itself. Let's go to the next example. And I'll name the file. Let's do maps search, show details. I'm simply going to copy this code block to the new example. Now using the get API or the places details API, now using this API, we can retrieve additional information from the place, such as the reviews and a couple other things. Let's take a look. If we look at the response body, and these are all the fields from the response. So we have payment options, parking options, view options, and so on. So we have a lot more fields that we can work with. And to use the get API, so service.places.get. And I think for the places API, we don't need to provide the request body, and that's why I want to show you this example. The only thing we need to provide is the place ID, and it's going to be the format. Then we have other additional parameters, like the language code, region code, and so on. Now here I'm going to insert the name parameter, and for the place ID, I'll go back to the spreadsheet, and from the name field, so these are going to be the place ID. And I'll grab maybe this one here. And again, we need to insert the fields. And I'll go ahead and run the request. And I'll grab these 2 lines here. And I think the keys should be, let's take a look. Oh, okay, I forgot to insert the execute method in. Now if I put in the keys, now this time we get a dictionary, but each key is going to reference each field rather than a list of records. We can paste the response directly to the JSON normalize function. And this will be places details. And I'll export the CSV file. And we now have the business information that are tied to this ID here. So just quickly go to the metadata or fields. So we have a lot more information that we can use to analyze the business. Now this is going to be everything I'm going to cover in this tutorial, and hopefully you guys find this video useful. If you find this video useful, please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. I'll see you guys in the next video.